That's the difference between a goal, objective, or mission and an intention. Pulls people together, that intention. Are you trying to be a better leader, change industries, reset after a layoff, or just looking for ways to bring your whole self to work? Well, you're in the right place. Hello and welcome to the Connect the Dots podcast, where I am focused on helping you through these situations and more by sharing real life stories and practical tips. I'm here to support you through coaching and mentorship, along with some amazing guests. Hello and welcome to another episode of Connect the Dots. I am your host, Heather Balsaric. My pronouns are she and her. I'm a white female with short strawberry blonde hair. I am wearing a blue shirt with white polka dots and a gray and white cardigan. I have on red glasses and I am sitting in front of a teal wall that is covered with different pieces of art. If this is your first time listening or watching, welcome in. And for those who have returned, thank you so much for coming back. Connect the Dots is brought to you by the Polka Dot Desk, which will offer corporate coaching and consulting. And we will be officially opening for clients in Q4 of 2023. Until then, please check out the website, thepolkadotdesk.com, sign up for the newsletter, and then you can check out the full podcast library from there as well. I do have a couple of podcast updates to tell you, but I'm going to save those till the end, so keep listening. But welcome to part 3 of Unlocking the Value of Learning and Development in Business. I am deep diving into my top takeaways from the Training Industry Conference and Expo, or TICE. And so far, I have shared 11 takeaways with you. And today we will wrap up the final 4. And so I want to do a quick recap of those first 11. So number 1, my development is necessary to help others succeed. Take time to understand the business was the second one. 3, be flexible in learning modalities. Number 4, move from reactive to proactive to predictive. Number 5, what is the work of the future, not the future of work? Number 6, L&D, or learning and development, is the center of the employee life cycle. Number 7, it doesn't have to be fun. It needs to be relevant. I have a lot of caveat to this. If you didn't listen to that episode, this does not mean that learning cannot be fun. It absolutely should be fun, but it needs to be relevant for the learner first. All right, number 8, are we focused on the right people? Number 9, tell them it's okay if it's not perfect. 10, design learning pathways in future state. And then 11, how to improve training retention with the acronym LEARNS, which stands for links, emotions, attention, reception, novelty, and stories. So today's takeaways are from some of the breakout sessions that I attended. There were lots of breakout sessions. So a couple of breakout sessions, I think one's from a keynote. And like the previous episodes, I'm going to make sure to relate them back to leadership. So even if you are not in the learning and development space, they can help you lead from wherever you are. So the last day of the conference opened up with a keynote from Sandy Ogg from CEO.Works. And the session was called Connect Your Work to Value. And the concept of value was really a theme throughout the conference. So it was a great keynote to end with. And the takeaway from Sandy that I want to talk about is change hits, value shifts. Change hits, and our job begins. Now here, the our part is the learning and development team. But let's go back and let's focus on that first part again. So change hits, value shifts. So this resonated with me then and even more so today. Think of value as the thing that the focus is turning to. when COVID hit, maybe your company was really focused on in-person training. So you were building out those kind of courses, and then boom, change. Everyone's virtual, right? Change hits. So the value is now placed in the virtual learning options. That value shifted. Like I said, this resonates though with me probably more today than it did at Tice. In the last 2 weeks, there has been a lot of change, or at least the possibility of change to the program that I'm building at work. And so we mapped out several options for what could happen based on what change actually comes to pass. And so we were trying to live in that like proactive to predictive space here. But for each change that we were thinking about, like we had to identify like where would the value shift. And the second part of that takeaway being that Sandy gave was change hits and our job begins. And as a learning and development professional, there really isn't a truer statement. When a new program is being implemented, L&D is there to make the training. When new compliance regulations come out, L&D comes in to update the training. I could really go on and on, but hopefully you get the picture. But thinking about these two statements, change hits, value shifts, and change hits and our job begins, in terms of leadership and how it can help you be a better leader. Think about this. When change hits, a leader needs to communicate where the value is shifting. Giving your team this information helps create buy-in because they have a better understanding of why the change is happening. And as a leader, when change hits, your job begins. Your job is to support and help others through that change and to communicate the value shifts and lead them through it. The next takeaway comes from, it's actually a quote that Christopher Massaro from Alight Solutions shared during his session. And his session was called Show Me the Numbers, Illustrating Data Analysis Through Storytelling and Visualization. And he shared a quote from Brent Dykes that said, "People hear statistics, but they feel stories. People hear statistics, but they feel stories." Even just saying those words, it feels very different. Like the word statistics is very staccato. But when you think about stories, it's got more movement to the word. Wow. I just literally just thought about that as I was going through and saying that. So, okay. Wow. Even the words make you feel different. But this was one of the takeaways that, like, you know this in the back of your head. Like when you hear it spoken, though, it can hit you like a ton of bricks, right? You know this, right? You feel stories. But when somebody sits there and says, hey, that reminder, like people hear statistics, but they feel stories, right? Hits you like a ton of bricks. And telling the data story is a skill. It's a skill that I've been working on for a really long time. I have come pretty far. Absolutely still a work in progress, but definitely better than when I started. And this takeaway can be implemented by everyone. L&D professionals, leaders, individual contributors, college students, children, et cetera, et cetera. But when you're giving information that is based on data or numbers, graphs and charts, all of those things, you don't just want to put them on a slide and read it, right? Make the data come to life. Make it mean something for your audience. How does it affect them? What is the value? What do you want them to feel when they hear this data? I'm going to give you a comparison example. And in this example, we're going to say that IKEA is looking at examples of how long individuals stay in their stores. So let's talk about a graph. I want you to picture a graph. I don't have a slide to show you, especially if you're listening to the podcast and not watching the YouTube video. But just imagine for a second, I'm showing you a slide, and there is a vertical axis on the slide, and that is hours. So it starts at 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And the horizontal axis across the bottom is dates. So these are dates that I went to IKEA. And so on this graph, you see this kind of jagged line. It goes, from like 2.5 up to 4, down to 1.5, up to 2, up to 3. It's kind of going all over the place there. Never really getting lower than 1.5. So you have this line, right? So on the graph, you can see a majority of these trips that I took to IKEA were more than 2 hours long. And in total, that's probably spent over 20 hours at IKEA in the last 3 years. Woohoo! Big deal. That really doesn't, you don't care, do you? You don't care about my vertical axis of hours and horizontal axis of dates, do you? It's okay to say no. So let's try this a different way. So moving to Clearwater in August of 2020, it meant I was a short drive from IKEA, which was a little bit of a dream. And since moving here, I have been there multiple times, including this past Saturday. And I realized on my way home that in all of the visits that I have gone, I really think there's only one time that I've gotten out in under 2 hours. That was probably the time I went with just my husband. But that trip last Saturday, right? It was about 3.5 hours, like in the store shopping. And part of me, right, I started to feel a little guilty about all the hours that I've spent in the store. But then I looked over to the left and I saw my friend in the car beside me. In all of these hours, at least 20 over the past 3 years, I have spent those with my best friend. IKEA is one of the places for us where we get to have our time to connect. We laugh. We get lots of ideas. We talk about all kinds of stuff. It's just that place of connection for us. And we enjoy those kind of 3.5 hour trips every couple of months. So you see the difference. I'm telling you the same information, right? That I've spent over 20 hours in IKEA over the past 3 years. But when I tell it to you in terms of a story, right? The value that those hours have given me versus just, hey, there's a graph. You feel that connection to the data. Hopefully that made sense. I tried to keep it simple for myself and for you. More for me so I could tell it easier. But anyways, I digress. Let's move on to the next one. So this third takeaway came from the opening keynote called Ask Powerful Questions to Make Engagement Easy by Chad Littlefield. He's the co-founder of We and Me. And he said, be clear about your intent and share it with the person it affects. He explained that intentions are different from goals, missions, and objectives. He said a really good intention stretches over the room and pulls people together. And the example he shared was from HP when they were creating their mission statement. They were all in this room and on the board was written, "We want to be the best computer research lab in the world." I mean, not a bad statement. Pretty bold. The senior engineer, though, there was a senior engineer in the back. She stands up and she says, that does not make me want to get up in the morning. So she walks over to the board and she crosses out the word in and writes the word for. Now it says, we want to be the best computer research lab for the world. That's the difference between a goal, objective, or mission and an intention, right? That second statement, right? Best computer research lab for the world. It pulls people together, that intention. And Chad talked a lot about stretching your intentions. And so how do you do that? And he said, let me make it real easy for you. Add the words so that. I want you to sign up for the newsletter so that you don't miss an episode of the podcast. See? gives you a lot more incentive maybe, right? My intention is a little more clear, right? I want you to sign up for the newsletter. I would really love for you to. But if I don't add that part in as so that you don't miss an episode of the podcast, giving you a reason. There's a lot to unpack in this little section. So for those of you that are in learning and development, I want you to think, are you setting goals and objectives for your programs? Or are you setting intentions? Are you giving the participants or end users the so that add-on? It creates the buy-in, the piece, again, that pulls us together toward the common goal. Leaders, those of you who are listening, current leaders, aspiring leaders, or leading from where you are, I don't want to say that it's obvious how to apply this, because some of you may be newer to leading and some of you may need some extra help so you can connect these dots together. So as a leader, you are tasked with setting goals and objectives almost daily. And so think about how you're doing it. Are you saying things like, all right, team, we need to get these emails out and ready today. Anybody got issues with that? Right. Just there's the task. There's the goal. What we need to do today, get these emails out. Or could we say something like, hey, team, we need to get these emails ready for the VP to send so that they have the time to review and request edits from us. Right? Setting the intention, giving that why takes it one step further to get the buy-in and get support to accomplish those goals. Because it wasn't just get those emails done. It was, hey, we need to get those emails ready so that the VP has time to review and edit them. It gave a why, right? So that what? And so last but certainly not least here of my takeaways, this takeaway is from the Speak Up and Speak Out, Having Inclusive Conversations session that was with Emily Gregory from Crucial Learning. If you're not familiar with Crucial Learning, they are the company that does the course like Crucial Conversations. They have a whole lot of stuff there on their site, but Crucial Conversations is typically the one most people know. These few sentences that I'm about to share apply to all of us. It doesn't matter your age, your role, your background, none of that. This applies to everyone. And I want you to really listen as I share these. Are you listening? Okay. People never become defensive about what you're saying. People become defensive because of why they think you're saying it. Let me repeat that for you. People never become defensive about what you're saying. They become defensive because of why they think you're saying it. And the other piece that she shared was safety is about intent, not content. So that means psychological safety or like that safe space to share. The safety is about the intent of the message, not the content, right? The why behind your message. Being in a psychologically safe space, that means you feel safe because the people that you're with aren't judging the why. And sometimes this can be hard to explain. So I'm going to give you an example. I feel like that's usually easier. So here's the example. So I'm sitting in a virtual meeting with a few people, and one of them happens to be very talkative. And so to get their attention, to kind of like cool down their talking, I sent them an ice cube emoji in chat. Just personally, not to the whole group, just personally. How do you think they perceived my intent behind the ice cube emoji? You could go a couple different ways here. One, they could be really confused and they don't understand. And they may be thinking like, well, is that for me? she's saying I need to chill. Well, that's kind of rude. Like, there could just be all of these really confusing things, right? Like, going through their head. Or maybe it's actually a coworker that I've worked with for a long time. And we've had discussions about how if they get too talkative in meetings, I can send them an ice cube to alert them to this behavior. So when they see it, it's just a reminder for them from someone that they feel safe with. So the content, right? The ice cube emoji is the same, right? The content is the same, but the people receiving it had two different reactions. Right? They had two different thoughts about why is she sending it. And one of those was defensive because they didn't know why. Right? That shield went up. Well, that's rude. Or are they? She's saying I need to chill. What's she talking about? Right? That defense mechanism happened because they didn't know why. And the other was thankful because they knew that my intention was to help. And this is a real example, the ice cube thing, right? I did have to send that to my coworker one day, but we had a conversation about intentions and working together and had created this safe space, before, right? They knew my intention because we'd already talked about it. We built that safe space. So those are the 4 add-on or additional takeaways that I wanted to give you from Tice. And let me run through the 4 that we added in today, right? So change hits, value shifts, and change hits, our job begins. The second was people hear statistics, but they feel stories. The third one was be clear about your intent and share it with the other person. And then use those 2 words to stretch your intentions, right? And those 2 words are so that. And then the final one was people never become defensive about what you're saying. People become defensive because of why they think you're saying it. And safety is about intent, not content. So I have a couple of updates to share with you that I mentioned at the top of the episode. And if you signed up for the newsletter before last week, then you got my midweek 111 check-in where I mentioned that a few updates are coming. So the first update is the name of the podcast will be moving to Connect the Dots, Lead the Way. And this is to align with the purpose of the podcast, which is to help you connect the dots to lead with confidence from wherever you are. And then second, I'm going through a podcast course and we had to set a challenge or a goal for ourselves. So I set one, but I'm going to take the advice from earlier and I'm going to set some intention behind it. So the goal itself is I want to reach 200 episodes by the end of 2023. I am currently at, I think this is episode like 165, 166, something like that. And so, to do this, to reach this goal of 200, I will need to release the regular biweekly podcast like this, but then I'm going to add in 1 week each month where I do 5 short episodes Monday through Friday on a specific topic. So my intention is to share more with you so that you're able to give me feedback on what's working and what isn't, because I can't do this without you. The first of the 5-day series will come out next week. So if you haven't signed up for the newsletter or clicked the follow, subscribe, like, whatever button it is on your podcast player, now is the time to do it so that you don't miss an episode. All right. I will see you all again on Monday. Please be sure that you connect with me on all the social media things, at Ms. Heather B. Dot on Instagram, at Connect the Dots _podcast on Instagram as well. Please make sure you check out the YouTube channel if you want to watch the podcast. And then check out the website, thepolkadotdesk.com. That will get you the link to sign up for the newsletter, a link to see all of the podcast library that I've done. So Go check it out. It's your hub for everything. Again, be sure that you like, share, follow, subscribe, ring the bell, and shout hallelujah. And we will see you next time here on the Connect the Dots, Lead the Way podcast. Until then, remember, you are loved, you are worthy, and there are great things ahead for you in this life if you trust and believe in the Lord.